All right, we are live. Good morning. And we're going to talk about the port strike and empty shelves and trucking in general. So stay tuned. Give it a couple of minutes and we'll be right back. Yeah, good morning. It is Friday, October 4th. I almost said 11th, but that would have been wrong. I don't need it to be 11th. I need it to be the 4th. So that's good. That's good. Hope all is well. A lot going on today. Yeah, so let's get rid of this windshield. You know, I was watching this video. This is a GoPro video I did. I had a really cool mount for the dash. And yeah, this was me getting out of it. Was just starting to freeze rain in this picture. You know, I just delivered Lebanon, Missouri, at a Walmart out in the parking lot because it was a construction, you know, where they put the containers out there, and I was trying to beat the ice storm home. And I think I ended up being home for quite a while because I had to go help my mom, and then like the small window of time that I could get out from the ice storm was completely eliminated. So I was home for a few days. So, but you know, you always got to consider things when you're an owner operator. Is that, you know, the truck. You know, you might say, I'm going to work 30 days this month and work my butt off and get these bills caught up. But then the truck may not let you, the weather may not let you, life circumstances may not let you. And that's exactly what happened on this trip. So anyways, good morning. I know I've said that. I have my coffee, right? I've got my coffee in my Snorelord mug, Yeti style mug, not an actual Yeti mug. And I like Fridays because I put like cinnamon and like some stuff in the coffee, you know, because we're trying to avoid natural flavors, but cinnamon is a real thing. It's a real thing. So anyways, we're going to talk about the port strike. The port strike has been suspended. I have not read up a whole lot, so you're going to search Google with me, and we're going to read about it. And then we'll check the weather. There's a lot going on. Let's put the weather map up here first real quick. I didn't expect to see a whole lot on the National Weather Service, but there's quite a bit up here. It looks bad, but Montana, you got a lot of high wind here. That's what all this is. And then this dark bluish purple and this light blue, that is all freeze and frost warnings. So we're starting to head into cold weather. Now, Arizona's seeing like record high temperatures, so there's that. But as you can see, there's nothing going on in the Gulf right now. You got, some general rain, flood warnings in hydraulic outlook. I don't know what that means, but that's in the southern part of Florida. But there is a hurricane way out east in the Atlantic, but it's not going to hit any land, so should be okay. And then what's going on in Pennsylvania here? Just a special weather statement around State College. Hazardous weather conditions. So I'm not sure. Oh, fog. Looks like it might be fog. So I don't know. Either way, that's that for now. But let's go to the port strike real quick. I googled it. Port strike suspended till January. That's what popped up, and we'll get to this here in a second. We'll read some comments, and yes, we'll read about what the news is saying about the port strikes. Now, I want to show you guys something here. If you follow me on Facebook, you've probably already seen this, but I don't know if you guys can see that. Yep, there you go. That is normally stocked with toilet paper, paper towels, and bottled water in Costco. This was Costco yesterday in Springfield, Missouri. Now, I got on Facebook and people were like, why are people hoarding toilet paper, blah, blah, blah. And then he had that meme that's out there. What's not going to be stuck, on the ports is, American-made products, blah, 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 blah. And of course, we as truck drivers know that a lot of paper products are made here in America. Same thing with a lot of food. Now, I will say this. I have picked up rolls of large paper on the ports. Had to have the escort and everything because I don't have a TWIC card. And then there are also a lot of paper plants in the southeast, like Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee. So, but I would like to think that the reason why supplies of toilet paper and paper towel are low is because a lot of the shipments have been allocated to go southeast where they pretty much need a lot of it. Not because people are out panic buying toilet paper. It's kind of it's a weird world we live in. Social media is a very powerful tool. I was demonstrating to my son. I held up a box of 59 millimeter, right? And I said, there was a time where I've seen this as high as $80. Now I didn't buy the $80 box, but and because of shortages, right? Because of panic buying. And it just, if anything, it really shows just how fragile the supply chain is, right? And there's probably a truck or two right now, somebody's watching this, that is maybe hauling a load of toilet paper or paper towel. Now, I wasn't there to buy toilet paper. Well, I was, but we have a little bit extra. So, we've always kept extra. We act like we live in Montana. We got extra food. We got extra, toiletries and stuff like that. I have this habit of buying two of everything. That's just what I do. But we were almost out of paper towels, and so I go there. I'm like, and they're cheapest at Costco for us, and I like their quality, right? And I go there. I'm like, really? So this is real. This is legit. This is not just a bunch of internet hype. And so it's it surprised me, but it didn't surprise me, and so But we found some at Walmart and just got it from there. So, but it just shows you how fragile. I mean, look, COVID showed how fragile the just-in-time model is, and so a lot of companies have, bought warehouses or leased warehouses or built warehouses, and they're utilizing them. And so there's probably a warehouse or two out there in the country, in the middle of nowhere that's stocked up full of nothing but paper towel and toilet paper and stuff like that. And, I imagine the supplies will catch up. And I've got nothing to complain about because, there are people struggling in North Carolina and Georgia right now that are in Tennessee that are having a really tough time. And so our hearts go out to those people. And some of them are my friends. They're dealing with some major stuff right now. So to see an empty shelf just becomes kind of alarming because you're just like, wow, how easily are people manipulated? And it's interesting that they went, they go for the TP first. You go to there seemed to be a run on beef too. So I'm thinking it was more of a supply chain issue because they had a ton of brisket, but they had very little beef. Even their hamburger amount was kind of low. So it was kind of crazy. It was kind of weird going in there, but we're doing fine, so I can't complain. All right, let's go to the comments here. Flatbed Trucker, good morning. David Edwards, morning. Sterling, good morning from Elko, Nevada. I know somebody used to live there. David Edwards with some secret code. All right, David, I got it. We're good. CDN Freight Broker. Yeah. Good morning, Steve. Has that been my tagline now? Morning all. Bought a Conestoga this morning, heading to its first load now. Bales of aluminum. Next week, back to daily solar work. Good luck with that Conestoga. I've had to dispatch a Conestoga at one point, and it wasn't easy. And you got to deal with brokers that are very knowledgeable if the freight can go on a Conestoga. There was one broker I called, can this go on a Conestoga? And they're like, what's that? Okay. It's an automatic tarping system kind of thing. And, probably not. So I was like, okay, thanks. Have a nice day. Those products from the port ships are ruining our country. You need more domestically made products. Well, there's also exports too. We also trade a lot of goods. So, since I'll be using flatbed next week, me and a buddy are going to use my sitting dry van to load with donations and take to North Carolina. So far, we have thousands donated, and we'll start filling my trailer today. Excellent, Gen Z. That's very good of you. And I've heard a lot of people are doing that, so that's good. You're one of the good ones. Excellent. Carriers be so funny. I provide a rate, then dispatcher counters. I explain how I calculated my rate. Then I ask dispatcher to teach me how they calculated. Well, that's what I need. Has any of you been told by any of your brokers that you're a core carrier? Yeah, C.H. Robinson uses that. You have key and core, and I forget what the lowest level is. Maybe it's core. I don't know. Sterling is catching wind this morning. Much anger. Hopefully you're not doing the doubles today. Josh, what's up? Good morning. David Edwards, people are mostly dumb. No, they're just easily influenced. Mob mentality. I've been reading that Robert Greene, The Laws of Human Nature, and the exact chapter I'm on is talk about the Mao Revolution and how easily everybody was manipulated into that whole movement. And, you had friends killing friends. And they don't even remember why. They don't even know why. And at the end of the day, the government came in, leveled it all out, put the iron fist down because they were tired of all the bickering because everybody was assuming that this is what the government wanted. And, it created some hardships for a long time. So, divide. They bicker, and then that gives them the permission to use the iron fist to put a kibosh on it. Next thing you know, you got a new reality. Sounds familiar. That's for the OG channel. Josh Savigan, I have not CDN. Chief Freyhaller, good morning. Hope you're doing okay. 10-4, base. Cents per mile. I'm peeing in a bottle as we speak. Cheers. Well, TMI. All right, let's say, should we use AP News, Washington Post, or Wavy.com? CBS News? I wonder if FreightWaves has got some about this. Why is that white all of a sudden? All right. All right. Port strike ends as ILA USMX, this is from freightwaves.com, agree on hefty wage hike contract extension. Union ceases job actions at East Gulf ports, resumes work. Okay. No party. Thank you. The story was updated at 7:57 a.m. Friday to include reporting, which that's interesting because, well, I guess that'd be East Coast. To include reporting of a Zoom meeting between Biden administration officials and port employers. A short-lived strike by dock workers that shut down East and Gulf Coast ports came to an end late Thursday when International Longshoremen's Association and the United States Maritime Alliance announced that they had come to a tentative agreement on wages and an extension of the master contract. The first ILA strike in 5 decades saw 45,000 union employees walk off the job and bring container and ro-ro handling to a halt at 36 ports across 14 major marine hubs from New England to Texas. Rumors of a settlement swirled Thursday, just days after President Joe Biden scolded employers for not bargaining in good faith and urged a resumption to negotiations. The settlement clears a potential major issue for Democrats, with the general election just weeks away, without Biden having to invoke the Taft-Hartley Act, forcing the union back to work while negotiations resumed. The new deal, which sources close to the talks said came together quickly, provide a pay raise of 61% or $4 per hour over each of the 6 years of the pact, and extends the master contract to January 15th, 2025. So we're kicking the can down the road to allow the sides to negotiate outstanding issues. A final agreement would still have to be ratified by union members. In a joint statement, the sides said that all current job actions will cease immediately and all work covered under the master contract will resume on Friday. And Biden's applauding the ILA and the USM. Today's tentative agreement on a record wage and extension of collective bargaining process represents critical progress towards a strong contract. I congratulate the dock workers who deserve a strong contract after sacrificing so much to keep our ports open during the pandemic. So Biden's saying his 2 cents. Vice President Harris, in a statement, said, "This is about fairness, and our economy works best when workers are sharing record profits. Dock workers deserve a fair share for their hard work getting essential goods to communities across America." They've been firm about, ILA had been firm about seeking a wage hike of $5 per hour more, while terminal operators and shipping lines were offering about $3. USMX on Wednesday said they were open to negotiating but wouldn't do it under ILA preconditions. So we've kicked the can down the road till January 15th. So anyways, that's what's going on with that. So good news, bad news. Good news is that the ports are open. The bad news is we haven't resolved the issue completely, so there's still that axe looming overhead. So make sure you buy your paper products, January 1st, so you don't get caught with your pants down at the Costco. But also, I joke, okay, but also, could that cause inflation? Because if they're taking some of the profit margins, what do a lot of corporations do? They just increase their prices so they can keep their profit margins, because stockholders don't like lower profit margins, even if it comes to paying more for labor. So, not a great situation, but better than it could be. So, but anyways, I'm likely going to tear the tarp system off of it and just carry tarps, but it has new tires and brakes and good deck, tire inflation, all for $5K. Some places won't even load a Conestoga. Right. And what's interesting is I had a friend of mine that was going to buy a Conestoga because he was thinking about going in a flatbed, but he didn't want a tarp. I'm like, well, number one, if you don't want a tarp, don't go to flatbed. And number two, guess what? They still want you to tarp a lot of Conestoga loads. Conestogas aren't watertight. So like steel coils, sometimes they'll still have you tarp them, even though they could probably go on a Conestoga. Then, so it's kind of a interesting situation. 3 deliveries inside of 285 today, Atlanta city streets. I love a good adventure. Been there, done that. I used to deliver to a homeless shelter. I used to deliver books. It was like one of these homeless shelter / free stores, and Scholastic up in Jeff City would send books down there, and we get it was kind of neat. I'd park there, I was fairly safe. One time a cop came up to my truck and said, "Hey man, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "All right, I'm just checking on you. I patrol this area, so I'll make sure that you're good." I'm like, "Okay," and I kind of wondered, if I was parking in a smart place, but whatever. The head of the union from the port said that they were going to bring this country to our knees. They didn't even bring us to our pinkies. Well, you have to wonder about that mentality, right? And, just like, the trucker strikes, it's tough to get sympathy when you're using the iron fist. And, and so there are times when you need to stand up, absolutely. But he had the potential to do that, though, Marty. And that's the point. They resolved the issue quicker than what could have been extremely damaging. But I think the biggest damage of the strike right now, as far as I can see, initially is the panic. I mean, there were people online, just absolutely just like, you better go out and get everything, like this is going to blah, blah, and you had people panic by them because they're so easily influenced. If you keep things stocked in a normal and predict, like I was telling my kids, this whole prepper thing of buying a generator and having, a lot of non-perishables on hand, and you know what, that's everyday life for people that live in hurricane zones. That's everyday life for people that live out in, say, like, people that live out in Montana and Wyoming and North Dakota, in the middle of nowhere. They have to prepare for not even being able to get out, right? So they automatically do that. There are people that live 100 miles from Walmart, and so what they'll do is they'll have a cooler, and once a month they go get everything that they need. So they're not having to go to the store. I'm pretty spoiled. I have literally a Walmart grocery store like a couple of blocks from me, and then we have a convenience store on the corner. So I mean, if I need milk or a fifth of tequila or a poisonous candy bar, man, I can just walk, and get that. So I mean, we live in the city. So, but most people have generators that buy generators. They live in hurricane zones. They live in areas, my sister loses power quite a bit where she lives in upstate New York. Doesn't take much for some of these areas. And so it's always good to be prepared. And for people that live, like, let's say you live in the middle of New York City and, they're dependent on the local stores having everything that they need. Because you don't have a lot of space in those apartments. You don't have a lot of areas to be able to, you don't have the extra room to put a couple extra cases of water and stuff like that. So, when I visited Sterling, they rely a lot on bottled water because of where they live. And so they're used to buying 4 and 5 cases of water at a time. So, oh, I missed that. Gen Z got that trailer for $5K. Good deal. If employers must share record profits, should employees share in the losses? Well, that's what usually. Yeah, it's called being laid off. That's what it's called, right? Sterling says, I'm not worried about running out of toilet paper. I use friendly woodland creatures. That's funny. Weird, but funny. DIY Semi says, I miss Mr. Rogers in speedy delivery. Speedy. Open flatbed is the only way, says Flatbed Trucker. They're no longer on strike because that would have guaranteed a conservative victory in the election. Interesting. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that persuaded things more than what we'll ever know, right? Prepper life has been great this week. There you go. Yeah, so happy Trucker Day. That's a big 10-4, good buddy. Oh, yeah, it is 10-4, isn't it? Don't call me good buddy, cents per mile. How dare you? Not that there's anything wrong with that. Whatever. But yeah, it is 10-4. Of course, half the people don't use CBs. They're like, what's 10-4 mean? Why did you call me good buddy? Interesting question. I missed cheap freight haulers. Okay. If employers must share record profits, should employees share in the losses? That is a good question. There were so many times in my life where I was laid off, or I think I've only been fired from 2 jobs. One was a telemarketing job, which that was like, put me out of my misery. Good deal. But the other one was kind of unwarranted. But I've been laid off. And I had this habit of seeing the flaws of what the company was doing, and I didn't yell at it. I didn't you don't know what you're doing. Like some schmuck like me in a factory of 100 people, is gonna. But I'm gonna tell people, these big corporate gurus how to do their job. But I did see when things started to degrade, right, deteriorate, and so I would make my predictions, and sure enough, boom, I'm getting laid off. 20% of us are getting laid off. And it's usually bigger decisions that thought they were going to get a higher profit margin, but all it did was put them in debt and take away the profit margin and ruin their product. And it happens all the time. I mean, look at Detroit. Find old videos of Detroit and look how beautiful of a city it was. And then, now you know what it looks like now. That is late stage capitalism at work there. And, capitalism works best when it's new and unregulated to a certain point, CDN says prayers to North Carolina situation seems really bad. Yeah. And I'm trying not to dwell on it. My wife and I were talking about that yesterday. And there's been some reports that some of the supplies aren't even getting to the people. And then I saw the $750 from FEMA. You got to be kidding me. So big failure on our government. And that's why you can't count on the government. North Carolina is exact. You can't count on the government. You can't count on your insurance companies because they're failing these people miserably. And that's the tragedy there. Shannon, good morning. Chief Fowler, that's irrelevant. The longshoremen have a right to collective bargaining. Yes, they do. Only poisonous food has been available this week. All fresh meats were thrown out of the stores. Well, yeah, I bet in your area. That's where the canned, it's not the best, but the canned meats are okay, like canned chicken, tuna, salmon. Spam can be okay in a pinch. But not the best, but not the worst, right? Mark P., Chief Freight Hauler, people don't say what you said. Teachers get nice raises. Stuart, the hobby trucker, good morning. If a new driver no-shows for orientation 3 times, do you give them a 4th chance? LOL. No, they don't even get a 2nd chance. Come on now. Well, it would depend on the circumstance of the 2nd chance, right? Like the first time, oh, my mom died. Well, yeah, then they have a, at least, unless they didn't communicate, then they come up with that later, something like that. But DIY, you're too generous. Shannon says, nope. She has spoken. In Alberta, there's always a boom-bust cycle in the oil field industry where crews are 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Then it goes slow. Rather than laying off half the crew, they share 1 day unpaid a week. That's kind of what. So remember, if you remember in the 80s, there was always the automobile strikes. Those were going on constantly. And so what Toyota and Honda figured out is you know what? Let's just, instead of laying people off, let's just work 30 hours this week instead of laying 20 people off. And they weren't tied to the unions, obviously, but that was something that they did. And you can actually collect partial unemployment if a factory does that. And so, you're able to, and a lot of layoffs happen just to kind of manipulate the numbers. Oh, look, we had a 2% rise in profit margin. Yeah, because you laid off half your people. So, I mean, there's, it's not an easy solution. So, Lance says these dock workers are wanting to get rid of all innovation. We've already have the worst ports in the world as it is. DIY has a truck available. There you go. It's a no call, no show. See, and basically instead of laying off, they split work to get everyone working. Right. It's better to take a little bit of a hit than, oh my gosh, I don't have a job now. Right. In our country, we seem to reward the least productive people, such as unions, and say the Secret Service. For example, they just threw a bunch of money up for their failures, right? Scott, what's up? Mark Keeley, what's up? Oh, Ronnie, let's take a look at some freight now, shall we? That's why you're really here, right? You don't want to hear me talk. You want to hear my BS. Let's get this up on the screen, shall we? All right, let's put this on Van. A little bit more green. Alabama's waking up a little bit. Let's take a look at Alabama. Let's see what's coming out of there. Rates probably don't reflect the low volumes, but we'll see. Oh, Gween, Alabama to Van Wert, Ohio today, 1,200, 206 a mile. That's not bad. Let's take a look. You guys hear that? Is that coming through the microphone? That's pretty neat. I'm weird like that with sounds. Sometimes I'll go into an empty room and I'll like, hey, I'll yell or I'll whistle to hear the reverb. I love reverb. You can tell by all my recordings. $1,200. Is there multiple stops? Non-hazmat resin. So probably tanker. It's probably going to be heavy. Oh, $39.9. That's not too bad. Could be worse. There you go. If you're in Gween, Alabama, landing in Ohio for a Monday, you're good to go. It's not bad. Get up to Ohio and a 34. Not a lot of posted rates, so that means a lot of things are changing there. Yeah, here we go. Birmingham to Knox, PA, $1,400, $1.73 a mile. Let's click on that one. Let's see where this should be at. It's 7% below my cost per day. They're not too far from the cargo chief. What's the tolls on this one? No tolls, so there's that. And you're in way western PA, so you could probably just skip over to Ohio to grab something. So that's not too bad. $292 to go to Davenport, of course. Let's sort this by highest rate. And while we do that, I'm going to read this comment here. I knew a company that once paid really well, but the deal was that you paid half of your mess ups. That's why they had to pay you well. Sterling StreamYard. Yep, I'm in Sterling. I'm in StreamYard dark mode as we speak. Lance, why would unions be the least productive? Asked Mark. That's what I was getting at with my comment about losses. We all know people get laid off when companies lose money and have a right to bargain, right? Cattleman D, you don't know heavy until you got 60K of cattle in a pot. Guess my kid left. All right. Now, the highest paying loads on the highest rates aren't picking up today. They're all for next week or next. Here's one for January. Nothing for today. Well, here we go. Coleman, Alabama, and Orlando, of course, 254 miles. So not a whole lot when it comes to long haul stuff. Let's do the highest rate per mile. On posted rates now. Greenville, South Carolina, 293 a mile, $800. Probably not a great rate per day. Probably doesn't deliver till Monday. Actually, what was the date on that one? Oh, picks up today. Georgia, Florida. All the short stuff's going east. There's one to Virginia. And people, make sure you map out before you go if you're going through Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, all that. Make sure you map it out first. There's that Gween Van Wert. Let's take a look at California. Let's look at the outbound in California. Highest rate. Because if we go over to DAT real quick, what's DAT saying? DAT's saying that there's 1043 going in and 2062 coming out. So Highest paying load long haul is California to Long Island, New York, $1.98 a mile. Let's take a look at that one. Let's say you're brave and you want to do New York City, right? Picks up at 10 o'clock today. They're above everything on the rates. Raisin juice. That sounds delicious. What's the tolls on this one? $313 in tolls. So not bad. But it's still 3% below my cost per day. So, am I going to take a 3% loss to go to New York City? I don't know. Probably not. Scott says, I know all about being heavy. My doctor tells me about it. Ghost Cat, how much money should I try to make a week, and how does scheduling affect it? I can't answer that question. How much money do you need to make? What's your profit margin necessary to make a profit? What are your bills? What are your costs? And and scheduling can affect that. If you don't know how to utilize your clock, if you can't keep the left door closed, you're gonna lose out on money. A lot of drivers, I know several drivers that like to work the second and third shift, and I'm like, you end up, if you're working the spot market, working nights, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, and you're going to have a day where you're going to take a loss. You're probably utilizing the click and goes more, and so you're leaving money on the table, or you're using some overnight people that don't have the same leverage as the direct agent that might have that freight. So, Lancaster, PA for Monday, 53 van going anywhere. We can take a look at that. So remind me. Obviously, mental issues run rampant in this country. Who gets a job with DIY and doesn't show up insane, right? How do you juice a dried fruit? That is a great question, Mrs. A. SST, man, I didn't see you sneak in here. DOI says, preach it. Sterling is puzzled. We're all puzzled, right? The reason the East Coast dock workers don't have a long-term contract is because their demand is no innovation. That is the holdup. That is why the docks in America are the least productive in, and I see where Lance is going. They don't want all the technology here. I mean, think about, some of these ports in other areas where they're able to utilize these huge ports with 10 and 20 people. That puts almost 45,000 people out of work. That's a big deal, man. And so there's got to be a compromise. Let's have some innovation, but let's not get rid of, you don't think that the people that own these ports don't want to get rid of the labor of 45,000 people? So this is going to pop up again. This is, a lot of unions, when they're striking, it's whack-a-mole, right? What happened in the automotive industry? A lot of jobs went to Mexico, and a lot of jobs went into the robots, the automation, right? What happened with a lot of the trucks, Teamsters? A lot of those companies have gone out of business. Yellow Roadway, to name a couple. And a lot of those companies are out, right? Because the owners find a way. And that's the problem. Union strikes tend to be a temporary problem. It kicks the can down the road. And so a lot of the people that strike today, their jobs might be secure for a few years. But then, if they're trying to do generational jobs, like, okay, my kid's going to work here, my grandson's going to work here, kind of a deal, and it'll be a steady job for them. Well, they're not securing the future of what's going to happen. And brute force can only go so far, right? The same way you get blood from a stone, Mrs. A, right? All right, so let's go back here. Mark wanted Lancaster, PA for Monday, 53 van going anywhere. So let's go to find loads. Great new search. Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Let's take this weight limit out. And going anywhere. And then we got to do it for Monday. Search. There's quite a bit. PA's got some good volumes. Here we go. Newark to Cedar Lake, Indiana. 242 a mile. Let's take a look at this one. That's kind of high for Jersey. My guess it's probably either a drop trailer or there's multiple stops not listed here. But if that's a one and done, there you go, man. I'd grab that. I know Newark kind of sucks, but what are you going to do, right? Of course, some $1.72 to go to North Carolina. No, thank you. See, $1.78. $2.16. Lewiston, PA to Jacksonville. Jacksonville won't be too bad, but you will take your hit out of there. Picks up Monday, delivers Wednesday at 10 a.m. Sorry. I would try to get a higher rate because you're going to definitely take a hit out of there. Bethlehem to Warren, Michigan. $1.52, not great. Let's see. There's quite a bit. $2.53 to go to New Hampshire. So if you want to like play around in New England area, you can make some easy short haul miles. $1,400 for one day, 553 miles. So quite a bit. Not a whole lot going northwest, so I don't know if you run the northwest or not, which, you know, I think the furthest west thing I'm seeing is Texas, which, you know, we don't want to do. $1.27 to go to Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin's been a weird market. There's great volumes there, but man, the rates coming out have been lowered quite a bit. You know, it used to be probably get $1.50 going to Wisconsin from PA, but then you're getting $2+ a mile coming out. But Wisconsin's been kind of weird. They're like turning into a Texas a little bit. There we go. Hyattsville, Maryland to Edgerton, Kansas. It's Kansas City area. Put you in that market. No posted rate, but, you know, when's that pick up? It picks up Monday. Of course, we got it set for Monday. Duh. And Joshua Hodge at Axle Logistics has this. 43,833 on the weight. Let's see what the tolls are on this. $35 tolls, not bad. Get enough fuel to get you to Ohio. Grab some Ohio fuel. Then maybe top off, you know, in Missouri, where fuel will be cheaper, and then go into Kansas. So there's quite a bit, a little bit. All right, let's go back to the load availability map while I read comments. You guys can stare at it. Unless you're driving. Shame if you're driving. Don't stare at it. Scott says, all decisions affect the bottom line, either positive or negative. Yesterday I offered Steve a load. No trucks for me. I found the carrier. I paid pretty good. 20 feet of a 53-foot drive-in, empty totes, 11,000 pounds, Cleveland, Ohio to Broussard, Louisiana, 1190 miles loaded. I paid $2,400. There you go. I did not have any trucks to offer, CDN. Mrs. A, grandson better go to tech school and be a robot repairman. There you go. That's how you like, oh, well, if you're going to use a robot to replace me, then, I'll learn how to fix robots. Everyone remember Halloween is near. Put a cup of glitter in a sandwich baggie and some bouncy balls. Your grandkids will love you. Okay. Shannon says, my broker told me this morning that the strike has been postponed to January 15th. Well, Shannon, if you were on time, you would have, I did a whole thing about that. So, there you go. I'm getting wife Lord a can of raisin juice. Shannon is catching up to the news that I explained, 50 minutes ago. So thank you, Shannon. Mrs. A is looking forward to a can of raisin juice. Morning, folks. Made it back to my neck of the woods. Can't get in the peep from any direction, so I am re-strategizing. Man. Prayers out to you, Buck. Certainly has a link to raisin juice. Raisin juice concentrate. Oh, man. Take it from someone like me who used to juice a lot of vegetables. I never, I think raisins would be very inefficient. Just kind of like almond juice that they call milk. But really, it's carrageenan gum and almond flavoring is what it is. All right, so that's our van market. Let's take a look at the rates coming out of Florida, shall we? Let's just take a look at this. Highest rate per mile. Ooh, $1.90 to go from Jacksonville to North Charleston. $1.70 to go to Milwaukee. That's not bad for Florida. That's on Tuesday. Freight all kinds, of course. 1877. So it goes for a little bit higher usually. Wonder if it's beer. What's the weight on this? 45. I bet you it's beer. Beer. Going to Milwaukee? That's weird, Steve. No, it happens. It's probably bottled water, if I had to guess. Tampa to Billings. $1.59 a mile. Not a good idea. 1900 to go to Westboro. Ooh, Orlando, Las Vegas. Go to Sin City for $1.36 a mile. Let's do this by highest rate. Let's see where all the long haul stuff's going. Shannon is heading home. Good deal. Sterling has actually hauled raisin juice. There you go. Got work to do. Great show, Steve. Get outdoors this weekend. Hike, bike, rent an e-bike for an hour. Just out and be active before that white stuff starts flying. Well, white stuff doesn't start flying for a while here, unlike you Canadians have to deal with. But I agree with you. My wife was just talking about wanting to go camping, soon. Oh, 99 cents a mile to go to California. 72 cents a mile to go to Canada from Clearwater. Let's take a look at that one. 13.2. I wonder if it's a partial. I doubt it. This is 99% below my cost per day. That's funny. Cargo Chief doesn't even have. Oh yeah, it does. It's not available for the Canadian freight. Oh, it says straps and chains. Do we got this on? Got this on van. Why does it need straps and chains? Anyways, this normally goes for $59. It's been as high as 5,900 and as low as 4,600. Rate check's got it at 63 cents a mile. So this is all over the place. This market is all over the place. That's unsustainable. You can't do that. Now, if it's a partial, you can add some stuff to it, then yeah. But that's hard to coordinate, especially going into Canada. Miami to Oak Creek for $1.21 a mile, 1,700. So in a situation like this, let's post this by date. Let's see what's all picking up today. Most of this is going to pick up on the 4th, deliver on the 7th. So where does this land on the 7th, right? You got Auburndale to Freehold, New Jersey, $1.01 a mile. You're going to take a hit on that. So you don't want that. So I'm looking for maybe, let's say I was silly and I booked a load to Florida. Now I'm trying to get out. You're going to take a hit, but you don't want to take a long hit, right? Here's Davenport to Dothan, Alabama, 50 cents a mile. Or no, 14 cents a mile, $50. I doubt that's legit. I'm sure they meant 500. But this would be a good screenshot to go, man, these brokers are getting ridiculous with their rates. Get on the internet and fearmonger. I see it on Facebook all the time. People are like, look at these brokers. How can they expect us to move for 14 cents a mile? Well, it happens. So, like the 770 miles, this would be perfect, but it's not a full load. It says 2,500 pounds. Something that you can roll on Friday, park somewhere Saturday, get your 34 in, then you're landing in a good area, right? That's my strategy for coming out of Florida, if not deadheading to Georgia and just grabbing that. At least some of your hit is on empty miles. So the Zellwood, Florida, Meridian, Mississippi. That puts you in an okay market, not the best. 1 day of driving, day and a half maybe, depending on how fast you drive. So essentially, if you pick this up in the morning, and it delivers the 5th. Well, then you look at freight coming out, you might be able to save your weekend and get a decent rate per day out of Mississippi. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of options here. Because I could sit there like, well, don't go to Florida. Well, sometimes you got to go to Florida. Sometimes, that rate is just too much to pass on. But don't burn your clock getting out there. So, Mrs. A says, I would settle for renting a kayak for a couple hours in the short term, at least. That might be a good idea. That's why Dad head to Georgia. It's just too low in Florida. Right. And look, how many times have you seen on social media, leave that stuff on the dock, don't take that cheap rate? And so with that logic, you would think that Florida rates would come up then if everybody's deadheading out, right? But they're not. Historically, they've always been low. Unless you're picking up watermelons, and even then they're still lower than your averages. So, I mean, that doesn't work. This leaving on the dock thing doesn't work for the most part. It might work in some situations, but If it's too low and they can't get the load moved, then yeah, they'll throw some money on it. And if the shipper doesn't understand that, then they're going to struggle. But let's take a look at reefer here. Let's take a look at what's coming out of Wisconsin. Let's say that you actually showed up for orientation at DIY's house, and we're going to take a load out of there. Which load would DIY find for you? Here's Appleton, Wisconsin to St. Gabriel, Louisiana, 118 above my cost per day. Cargo Chiefs got this at 33. They're at 28. It's been as high as 37 and as low as 24. So very volatile. Need tanker on CDL. There you go. KLLM Logistics Services. Wonder why they're not putting on one of their trucks. You have to wonder. Baraboo to Littleton, Colorado. Here we go. Beaver Dam to Haines City, Florida. That's pretty far south. 4,000. 30,000 pounds. Columbus, Wisconsin to Pittsburgh, PA. Sterling says CDN has a don't haul cheap freight on his Ferrari. Oh, that's funny. So, some good rates coming out of Wisconsin. Oh, I say that, and then there's one going to Texas for $1.64 a mile, 42,000 pounds. Here you go, DIY, Madison, Wisconsin, Springfield. We'll hang out. I'll take it to the Brazilian steak place instead of the cheap Chinese place. 12,000 pounds too, easy breezy. And I bet you it's either going to Caves or it's going to AWG. Doesn't say what the product is. So DIY, get one of them empty trucks. Come on out. Come on over. I got one package of deer jerky left. I'll give it to you if you show up. A lot of loads for today. A lot of loads for today. Here we go. Abbotsford, Wisconsin to Springfield, Ohio, $3.49 a mile. I imagine that's going to Aldi's. Oh, first stop in Chicago. That's why it's a little bit higher. Frozen food. Max temperature, -5. They are not deadheading out. I'm getting outbid. It's a race to the bottom, right? To utilize Florida, you got to have some strategy, right? I mean, Jose knows all about that. So, let's go back to Springfield, Ohio thing real quick. Let's see what the outbound looks like. $197 loads coming out of Springfield, Ohio, going anywhere. So that's good. Good volumes. So this would be a good load. Now, what's our rate per day? So something's off with this. 573 miles. You're going to do a stop in Chicago and then deliver by 10 a.m. in Springfield, Ohio. Picks up today at 8:30, which is in about 30 minutes. So this load is cursed from the start. It's an 8+ hour plus old posting. So who knows if it's even still there. No, luckily Chicago's on the way to Ohio. But you got to consider traffic in the area. How far downtown into Chicago is this? I'd work for DIY, but I'm emotionally unstable and demanding. He definitely doesn't need any more of that. Pittsville, Wisconsin to Lakeland, Florida, 303 a mile, $4,200. HTS just posted that. Utah, PA, $1.58 go to Utah. Yeah, no. Now we're starting to get into tomorrow. Nope. But anyways, that's your reefer market. Pretty much not far different from Van, except Alabama's not green on this map, and then Washington, Idaho have cooled down. But all these western states are yellow, so that's good. New Mexico, I'm guessing New Mexico's got a lot of pumpkins coming out. And look, this is the time for processed frozen food to come out now. Right? They're gearing for the holidays. So your frozen pies, your frozen meat, your frozen snacks, your frozen, football snacks, all that stuff is shipping now. This is the season for that. And then harvest, there's some harvests going on. And then Christmas trees will be starting probably in the next several weeks. So, all right, let's take a look at step deck and flatbed. Not trucking related, but check your homeowner's insurance. A lot of people around me are finding out that their deductible increases dramatically when there's a named storm. Wow. I was just talking to a friend of mine that lives in Florida about that. A lot of those, like a lot of insurances will not insure floods because if they're not in a natural floodplain. And so a lot of people are finding out that their homes aren't getting paid for. Look, this is devastating beyond what we'll ever probably fully comprehend unless you're in it. And there are already people in Florida that weren't insured because of the last hurricane. The insurance said, "Okay, here's your check. Now get the hell away from us." It's pretty much, an insurance company did that to me one time. I bought a pickup. And someone slammed into it and ran off. I thought the truck was totaled. But I had that truck 2 months to the day. And the insurance company wrote me a check and said, "We're canceling you. Get out." And so so my insurance went, for the next insurance company. My neighbor's $3K deductible went to $38K because of this fine print. Wow. Unbelievable. And that's why I encourage everybody to read their contracts. So, all right, a lot of yellow where there used to be red. So that's probably a good sign. Washington, Oregon, Idaho are doing good. Southeast looks like it's doing well. I think Illinois was green the last time we looked at this, so maybe a little bit of degradation. Of course, Kentucky and Tennessee Kentucky's red, Tennessee's red, or yellow, I'm sorry. So, but, all right. Well, it's the end of the feed. I've been averaging about an hour and 10 minutes, and that's enough. Make sure that you subscribe. There's some members-only videos coming up. I'm starting to make more shorts. I've got a new tool that I've been using from these live feeds to turn them into little YouTube shorts. And then I still have a kitten. So the kitten has brought a lot of traffic to the channel. So make sure you subscribe. And, if you want to try out the 123 low board, for free for 30 days, so you can not take my word on it, which you shouldn't take anybody's word on the internet about anything. 48065 for the code. You get 30 days for free. You can utilize all these tools. I'm just using one tool here. So, where's the chicken? He is, well, the big one's behind me, and the small one is in the bedroom somewhere, hiding from the kitten. So, I have not introduced the kitten to the big chicken. So, maybe I'll do that when I feel ornery. And then Shannon needs DIY Semi to call her. So, anyways, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great weekend. If you're working, I hope you're profitable. If you're a company and you're working, I hope that you're gonna bank some money and do well. And keep up the good work. For the people doing relief supplies down to the southeast, we appreciate you. And keep the shiny side up. And so head on a swivel. So strength for today, hope for tomorrow, and aggression turns to screws. Peace.